Good afternoon. Greetings live from the Besemscat, Cabitan, Mandaon, Masbate. Catch us live at 93.1 in your radio frequency and via 93.1 the Besemscat Buffalo Radio Station Facebook page. This is Sir Alvin Mahawan, a contract of service faculty from the College of Education. Makakasama niyo po ako sa loob ng isang oras in this College of Education Hours Special Edition. I am actually handling GE subject, the Science, Technology, and Society. At samahan niyo po ako lalo na sa aking mga estudyante from the College of Education, specifically BSED Mathematics 1, BSED English 1, BSED Filipino 1, BSED Social Studies 1, BSED 1, BTLED 1, and BPED 1. I am encouraging you to stay tuned as we discuss the first part of Module 1, the historical antecedents in which social considerations change the course of science and technology. Okay, and simulan na natin. The question is, why science, technology, and society? It might be a question to you, my dear students. Why is it that we need to study science, technology, and society? Why is there an STS? The CHED Memorandum Order number 20, series of 2013, states that this course deals with interactions between science and technology and social, cultural, political, and economic contexts that shape and are shaped by them. And this interdisciplinary course engages students to confront the realities brought about by science and technology and society. Such realities pervade the personal, the public, and the global aspects of our living and are integral to human development. In other words, what shaped the human development is part parcel on the influence by science and the technology that is upgrading from time to time. Scientific knowledge and technological development happened in the context of society with all its socio-political, cultural, economic, and philosophical underpinnings at play. So this course seeks to instill reflective knowledge in the students that they are able to live the good life and display ethical decision-making in the face of scientific and technological advancement. This is the reason why we need to revisit the subject, since if we are going to compare the relative condition and situation of the conventional way, yung tinatawag nating traditional conditions of socio-political is far different as of the present. And this course includes mandatory topics as well on climate change and environmental awareness. Okay, so let's start. Let's have the general concepts in science, technology, and society. It is already, we've been to this definition with many times that science is as old as the world itself. From the genesis of times, science has existed already that time. Only that it's not that polished compared today. The course discusses how science influenced human society and vice versa. It seeks to instill reflective knowledge in the students so that they are able to live the good life and display ethical decision-making in both social and scientific dilemmas. It is hoped that students will appreciate the contributions same as the impact of science and technology to their life, to the humanity as a whole, and in Philippine society and the world in general. So science and technology is actually a dynamic processes engaged in by men to satisfy two basic needs. So dalawa lang naman, the thirst for knowledge and the material requirements for human survival and prosperity. It is because science and technology is actually interconnected. Hindi sila pwede paghiwalayin because the thirst for knowledge, that we keep on upgrading our body of knowledge, we have new inventions, new discoveries, and that discoveries has something to do with the requirement in order for our survival and of course for prosperity. Science and technology had been around even before the words of biology. Before pa na-discover si biology, physics, chemistry, engineering, and agriculture, science and technology is already there. So in terms of its definition, science is actually the description, understanding and prediction of physical phenomena through the use and generation of verifiable theories, laws, and principles. And eventually, the research and development is a usual activities associated with science as a process. It involves the acquisition of new knowledge and the utilization of such knowledge to devise new or improved products and processes. Kaya we are fortunate in the BESMSCAT because we have the experts as far as science research is concerned. It is because we have the consistent generation of new knowledge that is part of science development. What about technology? Alamin natin kung ano ba ang technology. Basically, it's the use of scientific knowledge. In other words, what has been discovered, what has been verified through experiments, it is now being utilized into technology and or empirical somehow for the production. Here comes now the production, improvement, and distribution of goods and services, as well as the satisfaction of other material needs. On the other hand, it is more related to economic activity. Nagpo-focus na tayo not just in one aspect but sa economy na tayo nagpo-focus. The outputs of technological activity are necessarily composed of both the software and the hardware. When we are referring to software, it refers to methods, techniques, organization, and management, while hardware, that pertains to tools, equipment, machines, and materials, because what runs the hardware are the software. That was according to UNESCO 1979 and Posadas 1985. Okay, the core activity of technology is technological innovation that seeks to transform the prototype invention of research and development into commercial product or processes. In other words, parang yung research and development as the process or as a product of science will be into practice by means of applying that or by in terms of having the technology. Another important activity is now the utilization of technology itself. The actual use of technology in the production process points out the potential as well as the problems associated with a particular technology. This is the reason why, class, to the viewers and to the listeners, if there is a new advancement, new development, just like even the invention, the discovery on the vaccine, it's a big issue, malaking issue siya. It's because hindi ganun kadali. We are seeking on the security that it might be there is an emergent properties that might arise to it. Baka may mangyari if we are going to implement as soon as possible a certain type of discovery or invention, because it takes time. Sobrang haba ng panahon before we implement the body of knowledge into technology. Let's proceed with society. Of course, this is, when we're referring to society, it is a group of persons joined together to form a common purpose or by a common interest. They come to learn and perform behavior expected of them. The society makes use of science, integrating or vice versa. Vis-a-vis the changes made by science and technology in our society. Okay, so let's have now, I would suggest to my students to open your copy on Lesson 1, the Science, Technology, and Society in the Ancient Times. So we are going to revisit STS in the ancient times. So from the beginning of time, man has strived to improve his way and quality of make life. The caveman discovered how to make and use tools, develop a logical sequence for activities, and evolve processes that added value to his life. The totality of the use and application of their knowledge, skills, tools, and materials constitute what we today describe as technology. It is because the main purpose of our ancestors is that in order for them to survive, for their survival, and up to this day, we're able to classify them and to describe them as technology. We were able to sharpen because of our thirst for knowledge. We keep on advancing, we keep on discovering things. Okay, why is it that transportation is being highlighted here? Because transportation is significant during those time, ancient time, because people were trying to go places and discover new horizons. Palipat-lipat sila before. Oftentimes, we call them as nomadic, or they don't have the permanent dwelling. So, wala silang permanenteng tinitirahan. So they traveled to search for food and find better location for their settlements. So kung saan area sila they were able to find food, it will serve as their dwellings, or parang habitat na nila yun. Yun na ang magiging tirahan nila. They also traveled to trade their surplus goods in exchange for things that they lack. So even before, trading system is already present, yung kalakalan. And navigation assisted them in their journeys to unfamiliar and strange areas in the world. It allowed them to return home after they discovered new places or completed an important trade with another group of people. And what about in terms of communication during ancient times? So they needed a way to communicate with natives of the area they visited so as to facilitate trade and prevent possible conflicts. Record keeping was also important since they needed to remember the places they had been to and document the trades they made with each other and the history and culture, so they could establish their identities as they tried to relate with our culture and civilization. Record keeping before plays a vital role up to the present. Especially yung mga archaeologists natin, paleontologists, historians, they were able to look into these records before at naging basihan siya kaya anong meron tayo ngayon. That is why the millennials, even the 21st century learners are fortunate enough. It is because what we are learning today, these are based from the records before. What about weapons and armors? Because those are important in order for them to survive. It is important in the discovery of new places or the establishment of new alliances with other tribes. Kasi establishment, sa atin nga in the Philippines, tinawag natin ito before na blood compact, wherein there is the agreement between one group of people or one tribe into another tribe. And at that time, there was always a risk of conflicts. Hindi na aalis ang conflicts, ang girian. When people met others with different culture and orientation, it is because when they were able to look into varied orientations, varied culture, they consider them as invaders. Stronger nations invade weaker ones so they could take much needed resources. As such, the development of weapons and armors for security and protection was considered a major achievement. Kaya before, noon pa lang, alam na natin na inuuna na pala yung ngayon military na inuuna in purchasing new weapons and armors for those people in uniform nowadays. And before, they secured weapons and armors then since conflicts, they are preventing it from arising conflicts. Okay. Let's have early hunting and gathering tools. Bisitahin muna natin ano ba yung mga gamit nila before in gathering and in the things that they need for harvesting food. An assortment of prehistoric tools provides evidence of the hunting and gathering methods of early people. Ayan, we have the slabs of bark were often used to gather nuts and berries and functioned as crude dishes or bowls. Para naging serve na siya, yung tinatawag, usually ang tawag natin na vernacular term, an upak san kahoy. Yun ang ginagamit nila as para siyang storage of nuts and dishes. Reproductions of fishing tackle and arrows believed to have been used around 8000 BC are displayed on the lower. Ayan. So recovered yung sa kanina. Ayan. Recovered tools for digging and cutting are shown with recreated wooden handles. The heads of the adzes are made from flint as the fire starter shown below them. What about ancient agricultural practices? Relief art on the walls, it is because there are agricultural countries. Meron tayong mga bansa na talagang they are good when it comes to agriculture. They are promoting agricultural sectors. Parang kasi ito yung nagbibigay ng good development in a certain country, and it existed before na. They are having these practices. Relief art on the walls of the tomb of Nefertari shows Egyptian workers harvesting crops and tending livestock with rudimentary tools. The seal ngayon, when we secure documents of the present, pag nagsisecure tayo ng dokumento, hindi valid pag warang silyo or the seal. Seal of the school, seal of a certain entity. Seals and stamps have been used to close arrange agreements, record transactions, and authorize documents for thousands of years. In order to prove that a certain document is legit, or in other words is authorized, or that is in binding contract, there's a need for stamps or seals. Before, meron na yan. One of the earliest forms of printing seals consisted of a raised of curved design in rock that was pressed into wet clay or wax to create a distinctive and reproducible mark. This bull seal came from India and is considered typical of the era between 2300 and 1750 BC. Ayan, nakikita nyo in the screen that there's the bull seal that came from India. Let's proceed with the early agricultural tools. Human began farming about 12,000 years ago. The ability to control their food supply freed people from a nomadic lifestyle at what I have made mention kasi in terms of the practices that you keep on transferring from one dwellings into another is quite tedious and laborious. Nahihirapan sila, but as time passes by, they were able to craft agricultural tools. They started to domesticate animals and even plants, which allowed them for beginnings. Doon na nagsimula the establishment of cities and towns. These early farming tools date from about 6000 BC, and a picture portrays an axe used for clearing, flint sickles used for harvesting cereal crops, a flat rock and rounded stone used for grinding flour, and perforated clay slabs wherein probably used to ventilate bread ovens. Now, let's proceed with wheel structures. Considered one of the most important inventions in history, it is because before they are talagang naglalakad lang ang ating mga ancestors, and little by little they were able to establish, or they were able to make or to invent wheel structures. The wheel is more than 5,000 years old and has been crucial to mechanical devices ever since it emerged. Early forms of roller bearings, devices that help wheels to turn more smoothly, were developed around 100 BC, and wheels were initially solid discs but gradually evolved into the spoked design, which is both light and strong. Even you consult the engineering, those people who are those engineers, most of the time, most of their inventions are based from the surrounding orientations. It's like the orientations of a certain insects, orientation of a certain animal or a plant. Doon sila nagbabase in terms of their invention. And same thing what has been done by our ancestor in the creation of the wheel structure. So the wheels shown here are relatively sophisticated in comparison to the earliest models. Kasi nga ito, this is solid, talagang ano siya, made of woods. In the case of a fixed axle, the wheel is held in place beside the chassis. So meron na silang ideya in terms of the chassis, in terms of the spokes, and this model differs from another standard design. By that, they were able to make their transportation more easily. What about the type of boats? In terms of the transportation in water, boats are used in a number of ways. They can be purely recreational, or they can have more practical uses, such as serving as a home or as a method of transportation. Even boats with similar uses may differ in other respects. For example, methods of propulsion range from oars to mechanical engines to wind-catching sails. They were able to modify or to invent varying types of boats. Meron na sila sa atin ngayon, meron na tayong we have ship, meron naman tayong dibugsay, at marami pang iba. And these are based from the previous ideas, from ancient ideas. And they have also the catapult. The catapult worked like a giant slingshot, propelling large stones, javelins, and other objects over high walls. Even you watch movies that is an entertainment that is based from ancient times, mapapansin niyo that catapult are being used for warfare, para sa labanan na. One type of catapult called the mangonel used the torsion of heavy cords twisted between two uprights to throw heavy stones, but it had little accuracy. Ito, ang binabala na ay parang ano na, ay mga stones, huge stones. Ancient chariot. A chariot driver cracks his whip to encourage his horses. Chariot racing was a popular pastime in ancient Greece. Sa Greece kasi and Rome, it was recorded as an event in the ancient Olympic Games. Yung the race using the chariot. Karera ng chariot natin. Okay. So, let's proceed with knowing those people, those brilliant people in terms of their contribution to ancient times in STS. Pythagoras considered the first true mathematician. Pythagoras in the 6th century emphasized the study of mathematics as a means to understanding all relationships in the natural world. His followers, known as Pythagoreans, were the first to teach that the earth is a sphere revolving around the sun. This detail showing Pythagoras surrounded by his disciples comes from a fresco known as the School of Athens by Italian Renaissance painter Raphael. Let's proceed with Nicolaus Copernicus. A Polish astronomer, Nicolaus Copernicus revolutionized science by postulating that the Earth and other planets revolve about a stationary sun. Developed in the early 1500s, but not published until years later, his heliocentric, the term is heliocentric, let's give an emphasis on it, that means sun-centered theory, disputed the Ptolemaic theory. But because Ptolemaic theory at that time is very much popular, which held that the sun and the planets revolve around the fixed earth. Yun ang ideya ng Ptolemaic theory. But it was disproved as time passes by because of the idea presented by Nicolaus Copernicus, the heliocentrism, that sun is the center of the universe. Copernicus at first hesitated in publishing his findings because he feared criticism from the scientific and religious communities. It is because before, religion is tinitingala siya. If you have the discovery, you might be parang mabibigyan ka ng parusa by those religious people. After suffering initial disbelief and rejection, imagine, during that time, for how many rejection that Nicolaus Copernicus attained, ang daming rejection sa kanya. However, the Copernican system ranked as the most accepted concept of the universe by the late 17th century. Let's proceed. Next is Archimedes. A Greek mathematician and inventor, Archimedes is credited with important contributions to the development of physics. He is known for applying science to everyday life, developing practical inventions such as the lever and the screw. These simple machines have found uses as diverse as warfare and irrigation. Archimedes supposedly discovered the principle of water displacement while taking a bath. Imagine, it's just a usual activity, parang usual routine of Archimedes. And while taking a bath, shouting Eureka when he realized why his body caused the level of the water to rise. It has come now, the idea of buoyancy this time. Ngayon tinatawag na natin siyang buoyancy in terms of the quantity of water that is displaced once an object is present on a certain water or the volume of the water. Let's proceed with Plato. One of the most famous philosophers of ancient Greece was the first to use the term philosophy. He is the first one, Plato is the first one who used the term philosophy and born around 428 BC. Plato investigated a wide range of topics, and chief among his ideas was the theory of forms, which proposed that objects in the physical world merely resemble perfect forms in the ideal world, in that only these perfect forms can be the object of true knowledge. And the goal of the philosopher, according to Plato, is to know the perfect forms and to instruct others in that knowledge. Next is Aristotle. He is a student of ancient Greek philosopher Plato. Aristotle shared his teacher's reverence for human knowledge, but revised many of Plato's ideas by emphasizing methods rooted in the observation and experience. During the time of Aristotle, empiricism is being done already. Ngayon tinatawag na natin siya empirical. These are made made through observation, the involvement of our senses. Aristotle surveyed and systematized nearly all the extant branches of knowledge and provided the first ordered accounts of biology, psychology, physics, and literary theory. In addition, Aristotle invented the field known as formal logic, pioneered zoology, and addressed virtually because before, Aristotle has a big contribution to biology already, classifying animals and plants only. There is only the two classification of living organisms before, having the animals and the plant only, disregarding the bacteria, the archaeans, the fungi, and other microorganisms. Aristotle is possibly the greatest thinker in Western history and historically perhaps the single greatest influence on Western intellectual development. Okay, so I think I have come to my last slide for the first lesson, and perhaps we'll continue our discussion on historical antecedents in which social considerations change the course of science and technology.